Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with another top 10 list. And again, I'm late on this. This is a tradition at the channel, but I usually pick before these cards have been seeing play in Standard. But again, we're late to the punch here, and a lot of the cards have had to be taken off because they've been so meta, and I've had to revise this list. This is the top 10 cards that I am looking forward to brew from Guilds of Ravnica. So let's start off with my number 10. My number 10 is Truefire Captain. And Truefire Captain hits this number 10 slot because we all want to hit Truefire Captain with Star of Extinction. Well, not only Star of Extinction, but there's also a couple 1 mana and 1 damage and 2 damage spells that can hit Truefire Captain and can clear your opponent's board, which I also think are pretty decent. Also, if you can get this card mentored up to 4, there's Deafening Clarion that does 3 damage, and then it deals the damage back to the opponent. And I don't know, Truefire Captain seems like it can be a focal point in that sort of deck. There is no other card that does a similar thing like the Boros Reckoner. Did it have the Stuffy Doll? I can't remember if it did at the same time period. But it'd be nice if we could get one more when the next set comes out of like Rakdos that's red. They can also have this particular ability, or to some way to give it indestructible. We'll see. We'll see. Truefire Captain, though, does seem to be a very fun card, and it is on my to-do list to do the Truefire Captain and the Star of Extinction for the win. On to my number 9. My number 9 is Conniving to Concoct. This is a card really just for the Reanimator portion of the Concoct. 5 mana to return a creature to the graveyard from to the battlefield from the graveyard, and Surveil is pretty powerful. You can find I mean, even if you don't have a target, you can basically YOLO to try to find the target, and it's just better than the Reanimator spells that we have at the moment. Yes, I'd like to see a little bit better of a card. We are going into the next set being Orzhov usually does have a lot of Reanimator type spells, but this one is a nice Dimir flavor to it. I am wanting to build a Reanimator deck, and you'll see as my list goes on a few potential targets for the Reanimation deck. There's some good dinosaurs at the moment. There is the Meteor Golem. Nothing too fancy there, but again, we'll get down to this list and you'll show exactly where this card is going to fit into the spectrum. On to my number 8. My number 8 is the Vivid Revival. This is a card that is not Seasons Past, but it reminds me of Seasons Past, and I really like Seasons Past in the past. Hey, that's a lot of pasts. Vivid Revival returns 3 multicolored cards back from your graveyard to your hand, and so it's basically a 5 mana 3-draw spell, and I think you can build an entire deck around it, especially a self-mill strategy. There is plenty of cards that are already going, like the Izoni in the self-mill strategy. If you accidentally do mill them, you can get them back. We have like the Mulder Hulk that you can bring back if you accidentally self-milled it. So I think I'm going to try to go that route with Vivid Revival. Again, tons and tons of multicolored spells that are already being used in that particular strategy, from Fine Finality to Zoni to those type of stuff. So Vivid Revival is a card I haven't seen many people actually even try to brew with. It might just be too much of a mana cost at 5. At that point, you could be getting a Planeswalker down, or casting a big bomb at that point. But I don't know. I'm going to try to brew around it. We'll see if it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And these type of cards, though, I think I like to try to find the potential of cards. It kind of goes with my personality of, oh, people think this card is bad. Let's see if it really is bad. And this is my bad card. I want to see if I can make it good. On to my number 7. This was a lot higher until I realized that Conley Woods beat me to it. That dirty Conley Woods. He's usually pretty quick at brewing decks that actually work. This is the ThousandYear Storm. I like ThousandYear Storm in conjunction with Treasures. I haven't seen a lot of people besides Conley Wood actually go this route, but we have some good treasure spells right now in the format. So ThousandYear Storm copies a spell for each spell that was cast before it. So you don't get the copy off the first spell, but every subsequent spell, you're going to get a copy of it. So if you can copy the cards that actually give you treasures, and we of course have the one that gives you a treasure for each land you control, you can generate a ton of treasures, and a lot of those actually do draw cards as well. So drawing cards and creating mana, well, that's exactly what old school Storm decks do, and eventually have enough mana that you can copy something like an expansion into Explosion, or just a Banefire for huge, and then the ThousandYear Storm, I believe, still copies the spell on its stack, so it should should copy the mana that's put into it. So that's my idea with ThousandYear Storm. Even if you have to copy something like a Lightning Strike that you've cast like 10 spells before, or at that point all you need is what, 7 spells before, it's going to be lethal. So ThousandYear Storm has a lot of potential. It is a 6 mana enchantment, but it's a fun, this is definitely a fun Johnny type card, and it's really cool to be paired with the treasures. On to my number 6. Number 6 is Beast Whisperer. Beast Whisperer, I think, would have definitely wanted to go in my Ronus's Monument, which I miss so much. So I'm thinking about maybe going back to a mono green Explorer type deck and having Beast Whisperer as the payoff. Wildgrowth Walker is a good card. All the other Explorer cards that surround it are have a lot of value with them. But I think you eventually need to draw cards. You end up getting stuck on, like, you find lands off the top of your library, but a lot of times you get stuck with creatures. So anyway, Beast Whisperers will allow you to draw those cards and then cast even more cards. And it's a pretty value card for just 4. It's a 2/3 body's fine. It dodges like the shocks. And we have some neat little elves right now in the picture that maybe you could go with the Maverin. You could go like or Marwyn, you could go the Elf Ball strategy in Standard. The Thorn Lieutenant has a way to pump itself and leave back a token. There's a couple other ways that you can find excess creatures. However, Beast Whisperer, I think, in that type of shell, it looks interesting nonetheless. So I definitely want to brew around it, see if it's good enough for Standard. So far, I haven't seen any lists that are really running it. On to my number 5. My number 5 is Beamslitter Mage. Come on, this is my typical type of card. Hidden Strings was my favorite card. One of my favorite cards ever printed. It's definitely still on my top 10 list. And something you can copy like that is, even though it gives it only 1 target, is something that I'm going to try to brew around. Right now we don't have the best targets for the Beamslitter Mage. There still is cards like Sure Strike that can give something else +3/+0, but what you really want to find is something that will draw a card and give a significantly more advantage than what we have right now. Maybe when we find like the Rakdos is still there, or Gruul is still there, maybe they'll have a spell, possibly, maybe, I don't know. But the Beamslitter Mage is just a 2/2 for 2, and then you can copy a spell 1 time that casts it. So I don't know. I've had a lot of fun in draft with this. I've had some really showy plays in draft with this, and I'd like to at least give it a try in Constructed to see if we can make it viable. Feels like a pretty good card. We'll have to wait and see if that is the case. All right, so now we're really getting onto the good stuff. This is all stuff, 5 through 10 is just, I had a whole different list, but like I said, a lot of these cards I already saw a showing. I had cards like Thief of Sanity and Venerated Loxodon that of course are kind of tier, or Doom Whisperer, that was one of them. But anyway, these cards have still not seen much play, and this is number 4 is Mnemonic Betrayal. Mnemonic Betrayal is the ultimate Kevin card. I was a huge fan of Villainous Wealth last time around, and Mnemonic Betrayal I think is something that can work with one of my favorite cards right now, which is Azor's Gateway. I want to try a blue-black Azor's Gateway where the payoff is to cast Mnemonic Betrayal and then cast all of your opponent's cards against them. You can even put cards like Thief of Sanity. The cool thing about Thief of Sanity with Mnemonic Betrayal is you're actually milling your opponent for you, and therefore you'll have more fodder in the graveyard. There might be some other cards that we can use alongside the Mnemonic Betrayal. They get value out of milling and doing something. However, it feels like a Scarab God type card. It feels like Villainous Wealth to me, but their graveyard instead. The 3 mana is a little bit rough, but it's only 1 more mana than a Snapcaster Mage, and then you can cast as many cards from your opponent's graveyard. So Azor's Gateway looks to be the payoff for it. That's probably the best thing. I don't think it will go with like something at Primal. Primal will be fun though, because if you cast your opponent's cards off of the Mnemonic Betrayal, at least the one you cast the first will copy, I believe. So that's a deck in the making. I'll try to do it on a live stream. It's one of the cards that I will be trying to break. All right, on to my number 3. This is a card. Here we go. Now the reanimation makes sense for you. This is Lotleth Giant. I haven't seen anyone try to reanimate a Lotleth Giant. So Lotleth Giant can go a couple of ways. You can reanimate it, then flicker it. I like it in a deck, like mostly in a Golgari deck, because you have the Stitcher Supplier. You also have the 2 mana 3/1 that also loots 3 or mills 3 off the top of your library. You have a lot of Surveil cards, and it does work really well with Connive Concoct, as you'll Surveil and be able to recast the Lotleth Giant. So I'm thinking between Lotleth Giant and Meteor Golem, that's enough payoff for me. I don't know, you would run like Doom Whisper as well, just to surveil your entire library when you're ready to go on Lotleth Giant. Then when it enters the battlefield, it does 1 damage to your opponent for each creature in your graveyard. So I'm thinking of very, very heavy on the creature. A lot of the cards that mill, like the Stitcher Supplier and like those type of cards. There in green also has one that gains a life for every creature, so you can stabilize with that. There's a zoning that puts a 1/1 insect into play. I think that people have tried to go that route, but I haven't seen anyone really doing it with a Lava Giant and the specifically trying to reanimate it. So that's my goal: reanimate a Lava Giant, kill my opponent. I'm hoping that I can make it work. If not, at least we'll have fun trying. Now, into my number 2, I've noticed a ton of lists. I know I'm late to the party here too. This is Gruesome Menagerie. I'm going to try to find a better way than just using this as a value creature, or a value card. Gruesome Menagerie brings back a 1, 2, and a 3 converted mana cost card from your graveyard. So where I like this more is maybe as a modern potential. It is 5 mana, but usually, I mean, that's what I'm sticking into a lot of cards for Soul Sisters. Soul Sisters for Immortal Servitude usually is either 4 or 5 when I used to play it. Proclamation of Rebirth is even more. Right now I run like either Rally of the Ancestors or Return to the Ranks. Those usually have to put in about that same mana cost. So Gruesome Menagerie I'd like to see play in Modern. I think there's got to be some stupid combo that you can use to get back a 1, 2, and a 3 that just goes infinite. So I'm already thinking like the Seer, Kitchen Finks is right there. Do we have a 2 that actually... Yeah, and a Fenza, right? So you can get back Anafenza, Kitchen Finks, and Viscera to at least go infinite life, I believe. Yeah. No, because once you put the counter on yeah, it's close. I mean, I'm sure I'm missing something here. We have the Vizier as well. So Gruesome Menagerie, let's see it happen in Modern. Someone has to be able to break it. Maybe it's us that can do so. And yeah, 5 mana is not a stretch for those type of decks. On to my number 1, and of course, everyone knows by now what my number 1 is. We even have a bounty out for this card. I am in love with this card. I've invested in 185 of these cards, increasing, because I think the potential is so great for this. This is the Arclight Phoenix. It's had some lists already show up in Standard. It's already had a list in Modern show up. I've played this in a ton of decks in Modern. I've played it in a Waste Not Storm deck. I've played it in a Storm deck in Modern. I've played it in a Death Shadows deck. I've played it in a Hollow One deck. I still want to try it in Mardu Pyromancer and Blue-Red Thing. I think that the Arclight Phoenix is very, very underrated right now as a renewable resource where all you have to do is cast 3 spells. It works really well with cards like Collective Brutality and cards like Manamorphose. There's even the free spells like Noxious Revival and Gut Shot that they're surprisingly good in decks that you have a lot of self-mill and then put a card back on top of your library. I did some stupid things today with the Arclight Phoenix, being able to go through a ton of my deck by putting Reforge the Soul back on the top of my library from Noxious Revival with Waste Not, finding all my Phoenix, bringing them back with a bazillion zombies. Fun times to be had with the Arclight Phoenix. Like I said, we have a bounty going out. Whoever can 5-0 in a Modern tournament with a new unique brew can get a fat pack from me. So that's a $40 value for doing nothing, just playing the Arclight Phoenix. I've already been compared by Arya to the Seance guy of trying to pump a card beyond its natural brew, like me trying to pressure people to brew with it rather than have them. The Seance guy had like thousands of dollars on the line with this one. I actually like and believe in this card, and I love this card so much. And it'd be interesting to see what the rest of the brewer community can come up with the Arclight Phoenix. Like I said, a little bit of like shameless self-promotion for the Arclight Phoenix, as I do own a ton of copies. But nonetheless, I do think that this is a wonderful brew card. It's a wonderful card, and it is not even close to seeing its potential. So, of course, now my number 1 is Arclight Phoenix. So that's my revised list. Like I said, I had to do this over and over a couple times just because I'm late to the game here. So I will try to get these out before the set is usually I get this out when the set is fully spoiled. Then I do a list, and that's that. What I'm going to try to do is actually do one deck with each of these ideas. So, for example, we will try to find a True Fire Captain, Star of Extinction type deck, a Reanimator deck, a Vivid Revival deck, a Better Wave, a Gruesome Menagerie, and a Modern deck. ThousandYear Storm, we'll try to make it happen. Down the list, we'll try to make these cards work. So you can catch my streams. We'll be streaming a lot more. Usually around, I would say, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time is when I try to stream. I'll have a lot more of that for the gameplay. We'll even do some deck text for this these type of cards, and maybe even we'll have it on my third channel. I've created a second channel called the Rogue Market for finance, but I want to create a third channel specifically for deck techs when they're highly edited, without all the rambling, without all the gameplay and all the distractions. It just showcases the card. If you want a reference for this, you can go and watch my video called number 10 Walking Ballista. I'll have a card up here in the cards. Just click on it. It'll take you to Walking Ballista. I'm very proud of this deck, and I'm very proud of how I do it, and it's going to look exactly like this. I was frustrated because YouTube throttled it down for some reason. I don't know why. It didn't get very many views at all, but I think that's the way I want to start doing deck techs in the future. Kind of this little hybrid showing highlights as well as explaining the deck. Let me know what you think of the video. It has not got enough views. It sucks. I put in like, I think 7 hours to the video, and I was going to do a whole series of that, but it just frustration built up that it took that long with no one being able to watch it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have your own top 10 list of cards that you want to brew around that maybe don't show up in mine, put them down and link in the description below. Again, these aren't the most powerful cards from the set, far from it. These are just the cards personally that I want to brew with, and I think that everyone should have one of these lists. I think that that is the whole magical experience of Magic, is trying to find new innovative ways to play the various cards of Magic the Gathering. It sucks when a few cards dominate a format, or a few cards get into this kind of spike mentality, rinse and repeat, where everyone plays the same thing. You can go check out my top 10 list of cards that I am glad rotated for an example of what I don't like out of cards, and I don't think you'll find any of these type of cards ever hit the very spiky lists in the future. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.